Hello, welcome to my channel, Jersey Shore Pondscapes videos. My name is Chris, and if you're into koi ponds and water gardens, pond filtration, aquatic plants, and fish, and the whole bit, you've come to the right place. I've got a ton of videos here for you guys, well over 100 videos on all different topics pertaining to ponds. And you know, if you are new to the hobby, you're looking to build a pond for yourself, or you know, you have a pond and you're interested in, you know, some information on a certain topic, hopefully I can help you out and you can find a video here for it. I have well over 100 videos here on this channel so far on so many different topics, you know, as far as building, maintaining, understanding your pond. And also, you know, check out the playlists here on my channel because I have all my videos categorized into different playlists to help you navigate around and hopefully help you find what you're looking for a little bit easier. So again, thank you very much for your interest. I really appreciate the support. So if you can hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and take some time and look around, I would really appreciate that. Today's video, we are talking about a subject that seems kind of simple, but actually gets kind of complex. So I want to try to break this all down for you without taking 2 hours to do it. But I do want to cover a lot here for you guys, and I hope in the end you kind of get a whole big picture and understanding of basically this question that I get asked a lot. And that is, how many fish or how many plants can I put in my pond? All right. Now, if you look this up on the internet, all right, you know, how many fish can you put in a pond? You may find calculations. Well, so many inches of fish per gallons of water and whatever, okay, something like this. And people would suggest, well, maybe, you know, 8 to 10 plants per, you know, however many gallons of water or whatever, okay? And that's all well and good. I'm not saying anything like that is wrong. My thing is, when you build a pond, you're building your own little ecosystem here, okay? Now, everything is dependent on each other. Now, it also is going to really depend on what kind of pond you're building, okay? Because I want to stress this too. Are you building a koi pond, or are you building a water garden? To me, they're two different things, all right? A koi pond is a pond designated to, you know, have koi, all right? A water garden is a pond that is dedicated for more plants, flowers. Now, most people who build ponds kind of want to be in between. They want that middle ground. Yeah, I want some koi, I want some goldfish, I want all this, but I also want some plants and some flowers in my pond as well, all right? Here's, you know, kind of the line that I want to draw, because koi, as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, become more destructive to your plants. Now, that's a general rule, okay? I have clients that feed their koi water hyacinths, all right? I have clients that have water lilies in the ponds with their koi, and they say, oh, my flowers, my lilies are growing great. And I'm like, no, they're not. They only have 5 leaves on them that are half chewed up and 2 flowers. All right, whereas it should have 20, 30 leaves on it and 8, 10 flowers. All right, so koi can be very destructive as they get bigger, especially when they're laying their eggs. They get into those plants, they rip them all apart, they dig in the pots, they uproot plants, they get the dirt and the mud out all over the pond. Koi are carp, all right? Carp dig in the mud, all right? That's what they do, all right? So a water garden now, to me, is more of a, you know, pond that you're growing plants and flowers in with just a couple goldfish. So we go from the koi pond that, you know, and that could have koi, it could have some goldfish and stuff in it too, but it's basically a pond built for fish, and the water garden is the pond built for plants. All right, so there's 2 different things. So when you look at this, going back to, you know, how many plants should I have in my pond? Well, it depends on what kind of pond you have. Is it a water garden? Well then, yeah, you're going to want to have more plants. If it's a koi pond, well, you might have some plants in the beginning until your fish get big, and then once they get big, it's going to become more of a fish pond than a water garden, all right? So there's no direct answer. It depends on what we're building. And like I said, for the majority of us, a lot of my clients were looking kind of for that middle ground. I do have a lot of clients that say, I want a koi pond, I want koi, I want big fish, and that's it. And to them, plants just foul up the water and muddy it up and get dirty and don't want them, all right? I want fish, I want big koi. But most people are kind of in between. I want some goldfish, I want a couple koi, and I want some flowers in my pond. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as this video. That middle ground, trying to satisfy, you know, a little bit of each, okay? Trying to get, you know, some plants and some fish. Now, if I build a pond for somebody and I know they're looking for just koi, I build it a little bit differently than in a water garden, okay? I need to make it deeper, all right? Maybe I'm not even putting shelves in it. Because why am I having shelves if I'm not having plants? Shelves also sometimes can be good in a pond to help assist you get in and out of the pond if you ever need to get in it for anything. If you're ever like draining it and cleaning it, and your pond is 5 foot deep with straight walls, right? It's hard to get in and out of, especially when those walls are all green and slimy with that slime green algae coat. It's like grease, all right? So to have a nice shelf or two in there, at least in one area of the pond, to help you get in and out is a great help. But we don't need shelves all around for plants if we're doing specifically a koi pond, all right? Also, not having shelves helps to deter predators because they don't have anything, you know, a shelf to stand on, all right, to get into the pond. A water garden may not have to be as deep, all right? Most of our water plants don't want to be any more than 2 or 3 feet deep, like water lilies, hardy water lilies. You know, 2.5 feet deep is beautiful for them. If we go 4 feet deep, it's getting a little deep, all right? It's almost too much to have water lilies down there. But we don't want to keep it a foot high, a foot deep either, because, you know, if we do want some plants or fish or something in there, you know, we need to make sure they'll be safe in the winter time and not freeze. So 2 different depths, maybe 2 different filtration systems, okay, as well. You know, the way we circulate the water in the ponds might be slightly different as well. But, you know, again, designing your pond appropriately for what you want in the end is really important. And this whole pond is its own little ecosystem, okay? For the most part, like I said, you know, you want some plants, you want some fish. Okay, we need to kind of provide a balance here. For ponds that the homeowners may want to do naturally without like a big filter system. You want to filter the water through, you know, bog gardens and, you know, like bog filters and plants and stuff like that. Well, that's a whole nother case as well. So it really depends, right? How many plants should I have in my pond? Well, what kind of pond are you building? All right, that's my whole point here. Like I said, this video can go on and on and on. I'm going to try to run through things as quickly as I can here. But I want you to get the point and understand where I'm coming from. So, when we build a pond, right, let's talk about fish. How many fish can I put in my pond? Well, here's the big thing, all right? Number one, it's going to be based on the filtration, all right? The more fish you have, the bigger the fish you have, the more waste you're going to have in your pond. The more your ammonia levels can build up, okay? And the more nutrients you're putting in the water for algae and stuff to grow and feed on. So the filtration system is really important. Now, one thing about filters that I really want to kind of just spend a minute on, because it bugs the heck out of me, to be honest with you. A lot of the smaller or just, well, most filters for ponds, be it a small pond, a larger pond, the filters are based on the gallons in the pond. This filter's for a 1,000-gallon pond. This filter's for a 4,000-gallon pond. This filter's for a 10,000-gallon pond, and so on and so forth, okay? I've been doing this over 25 years now. I'll tell you, I never go by that, all right? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, all right? It's a guide for the homeowners, the average homeowners who don't really know what they're doing, okay? Kind of a guide to give them, okay, this is about the size of the filter that I need for my pond, okay? And that's great. But the reality is, the amount of water in the pond is not the only criteria that you need to be worried about when you're sizing your filters, okay? I could have a 1,000-gallon pond with 3 fish in it, I'm just saying, okay? And maybe that 1,000-gallon filter is fine. I might have the same size 1,000-gallon pond with 25 fish in it, all right? Now my bioload is much higher. Now the amount of waste in my pond, the amount of ammonia generated in this pond is going to be much higher. Well, is that 1,000-gallon filter still going to be good? Probably not. All right. Also, you may buy a dozen fish for your 1,000-gallon pond that are this big. Okay. 5 years from now, those fish might be this big. The amount of waste, the amount of ammonia, the amount of biomass in the pond has increased greatly. Same pond, same filter. Maybe it was good back then. In the future, it might not be. All right. So the gallons in your pond are not the most important thing. To me, it's going to be the bioload. And more importantly, the flow rate through it. Okay, how much water can we pump through that filter? Having a small filter, on a 1,000-gallon pond, where you can only pump, 1,000 gallons an hour through it, may not be the best thing. All right. There's a lot of tricks with flow rates through filters, especially, as far as circulating that entire volume of water. The more we can turn that water over, the more we can circulate that pond, the cleaner it's going to be. All right. But we need to have a filter that's large enough to withstand or maintain the water clarity in a high flow rate. So in other words, if I have a box, let's take just a shoe box, okay? Let's just take a shoe box because they're all general same size, right? A shoe box. If I have a pump pumping 500 gallons an hour through there, all right, it may do a good job. Regardless, I'm not talking about whatever kind of media is in it. I'm just saying a filter the size of a shoe box, whatever it may be, pump 500 gallons an hour through it, it may filter it pretty well. If I pump 2,500 gallons an hour through that little box, that water's going to come in and go and flush out. It's not going to have a good time to settle and filter with a fast flow rate. So the faster our pump is pumping the water through it, the bigger our filter has to be to handle that water, okay, without just blowing the garbage back out to your pond. So have a nice, bigger, oversized filter. To me, you can never overfilter. There's no such thing as overfiltering your pond. You have a 1,000-gallon pond, put a 5,000-gallon filter on it. All right? Put a larger pump on that. Turn that water over. The more water you can pump through your filter, the cleaner it's going to be. All right? So, sorry to get on that little rant here, on that little side note, but it's important, okay? Because Again, getting back to how many fish can I put in my pond, right? Depends on your filtration system. I've built small ponds with a big filtration system, and people say, oh, I got 10 fish in there, is that too many? And my answer right away is no. The filter system can handle it. It's not a problem, okay? What you should be concerned about, however, if you have a small pond and you're putting a lot of fish in it, keep in mind the fish will grow, right? And they may even multiply, right? They may have babies. So you might have 10 fish in there now, but in a couple years you might have 25 fish in there. The thing is with that, okay, when you first start building a brand new pond, you may go out and you may buy a dozen smaller fish, put them in there, and it doesn't look like much, right? They're just a few little fish swimming around. But you have to remember, they're going to grow. They're going to get bigger. So don't overstock it. If you have a pond that's overstocked with fish, the fish grow too big, the fish have babies and end up multiplying, and you have a ton of more fish now, okay? There's a lot of things that can happen. One little myth that I hear all the time is, well, the fish will grow to the size of their environment. And that's referring to koi in a small pond usually. Well, they'll only grow to the size of their environment. And I hear that, and then I say, yeah, and then they die. Okay? Koi can live 50, 60 years. I have a client right now who has a koi we were talking about the other day, that the koi, it's a large butterfly koi, and the name of the koi is Darth Vader. All right? So we were talking, and she says, oh, I had that fish in the original pond my husband built years ago, and this woman's 80 years old now, okay? And she says, we named him Darth Vader because we got that fish right after we saw the Star Wars movie came out in the movie theaters. All right, so what was that? Middle 70s, right? Late 70s, Star Wars came out. They bought Darth Vader, all right? That fish is still swimming around in that pond, all right? So, the koi can live many, 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 many years. And koi want to grow big. It's a carp, okay? If you keep a fish in a small little fish tank that wants to grow 3 feet, and that fish is like this, he's not going to live 40, 50 years. He may live 8, 10 years. He may get to a certain point and then get sick. Right? Sometimes their spines get all crazy. Sometimes they just get, whatever kind of, their immune system gets weaker. The fish they don't survive long. Mother Nature takes its course. If you have a pond that's overstocked with fish, I kind of say sometimes Mother Nature takes its course and thins the herd. Be it diseases, parasites, bacterial infections, whatever it may be, okay? Things happen and fish die. I believe it's a natural process that, like I said, Mother Nature takes its course. It helps to control that overpopulation. So there can be problems, okay, with getting too many fish. So my biggest advice is keep in mind that they grow and that they have babies. Don't overstock your pond at first, unless you're prepared in the future to be able to remove fish and get rid of them or take them to a friend's house or sell them or whatever you may want to do. I don't know. All right. Start off with the amount of fish that can keep your pond interesting but not become overbearing in the future. And make sure that your filter system is adequate enough to handle that bio load, okay? Again, oversize your filters is the best advice I can always give you. Oversize your filters and get a little larger pump. I have many ponds. A lot of the ponds that I've built are not massive. They're somewhere in the neighborhood of, 800 to whatever, 1,200 gallons, something in that ballpark. 8 by 10, 10 by 12, something like that. 2.5, 3 feet deep, depending on, koi pond, water garden kind of thing. And typically, I have you know, a nice big filter system on it, moving maybe 3,000 to 4,000 gallons an hour on an 800 to 1,200 gallon pond, and the pond stay crystal clear. All right. But I have big enough filters to handle the water flow. And with that, you know, I don't really tell my clients that, you know, you can only buy up to 8 fish. You know, it's up to them. You want to put 20 small fish in there, that's fine. If the filter will handle it, keep in mind they're going to grow. You know, and what happens later, you know, that's, you know, dependent on how they grow and how, the whole bit, what kind of fish you have. But that's basically the point I want to make. Now, as far as water plants goes, okay, let's talk water plants. How many plants should you have in your pond? Okay, again, what kind of pond is it, right? Water garden, yeah, you're going to put a lot of plants in there. You're going to stuff it with plants. It is beautiful. That's what you want, right? In a water garden, you're all about the plants, the flowers, you know, maybe a few goldfish just for some extra life. You know, hopefully you'll have some frogs and stuff in there. And yeah, definitely a beautiful thing. Plants help out in this whole what's called the nitrogen cycle. All right, the nitrogen cycle in a pond is basically when you grow 2 types of bacteria in a biological filter. Basically, the 2 bacterias do a process where one bacteria takes the toxic ammonia and turns it into nitrites, which is also toxic. And then the next type of bacteria will take those nitrites and turn them into nitrates. Now, nitrates are far less toxic. It's our end product of this nitrogen cycle. So we're taking the nasty ammonia and nitrites out of the pond and turning it into nitrates. Now, nitrates can become toxic if they build up too high, but they're far less toxic than the ammonia and nitrites. But the kicker with the nitrates is they are used as plant fertilizer. The plants can absorb them. So the more plants you have in your pond, they will absorb those nitrates out of the water and keep everything nice and balanced. All right? If we don't have plants in our pond because we have a koi pond, right, and it's just koi, then our nitrate levels eventually can build up. And to eliminate that and control that, we just do some water changes. Just periodically, once a month or so, we take out 10, 15, 20% of the water and just do a freshen up water change, and I've never had any issues. I have some clients that really hardly ever do anything, but you know, when they backwash their bead filters or something, you're removing water, you add a little bit more. It just seems to keep a balance pretty well. But the point is, the aquatic plants will absorb the nitrates out of the water and help to keep things balanced. For use, for some people use bog filters, which is basically a big filter bed full of plants that the water pumps through. And those plants, as the water pumps through those plants, the plants kind of, help to absorb some of the toxins and some of the settlement, mud and dirt and stuff gets collected in there as well. Not a big fan of that, just not my style. Not saying it doesn't work. I just find I've seen a lot of ponds that have bog filters, and they're a mess. All right, if they're not maintained properly, okay. But the concept of it is good. All right. As far as how many plants to put in your pond, again, it just depends on your system and what looks nice. Keep in mind too, plants grow. All right. So if you have a pond 10 by 12, I wouldn't say to put 6 water lilies in it, because they're going to cover the entire pond. All right. Maybe 1, 2 water lilies, maybe a hardy, a tropical, couple bog plants sticking up here and there for little accents and thing. Beautiful. Again, just depends on what you want to do. If you have a nice filtration system on your pond, then this natural balance is not as crucial, because your filtration system is going to take care of what your pond is going to naturally, help to naturally balance out your pond. All right. A lot of the bacteria that balances out your pond filtration system in there, your biological filter, all that natural biologics is not only in your filter, but it's in your entire pond system itself. All right. So, how many plants, how many fish, it's kind of up to you and what you want to design and create. And just find that nice balance, okay? Rome wasn't built in a day. If you're building a brand new pond, maybe start off with 6, 8 fish or 10 fish, whatever. I don't know how big your pond is, right? But a smaller, reasonable number of fish to give it some life, give it some interest, but not make it overbearing in 2 years. Same with your water plants. Start off with a few. Keep in mind, a lot of these marginal plants, bog plants and stuff spread like crazy. They're really invasive, some of these plants. They need to be cut back if they're not maintained and controlled in a pot. Nice big pots make them grow bigger. All right. Don't overdo it to begin with. Get your pond established, get it set up, get it running, add a few plants, add a few fish. Things go well, you learn a little more as you go, right? Maybe next year, maybe add another plant or two. Maybe you want to add a couple more fish. Maybe not, all right? Sometimes adding fish can be risky. You don't know what you're bringing in with it. You can have a beautiful, healthy pond and buy one fish and bring it in, and it's got some parasites or something on it that can kill half of your other fish. So you might take caution with that too, but just in general, I hope I'm trying not to get too far off topic here, but I want to give you this information. So I hope that kind of helped you out a little bit. And while I didn't answer specifically how many plants and how many fish you should buy, I hope I kind of gave you some guidelines and some things to think about to help you with your own pond system, because everything is different, and it's hard to say this is the number you should have. Your pond is this big, you need this many fish, that many plants. I don't believe in that, all right? There's just so many variables about each pond, right? Are you in the sun? Are you in the shade? Again, what size filter you have? How much water are you pumping through that filter? All that comes into account as to what you should do with your pond. So my best advice is know the kind of pond you want to build, right? Koi pond, water garden, somewhere in between. And start slowly, right? And make sure your pond is set up properly with the proper filtration system, a good adequate water flow through that, and build on from there. Okay? Having too many plants is never really going to be a bad thing, other than the fact that things start getting too cluttered and out of control. All right? Having too many fish can cause some problems, and eventually, as I said, Mother Nature can take its course, and you end up with diseases and parasites, and fish just die. Okay, it's too much. The more fish you have in the summertime in the hot water, the more the oxygen demand is to keep those fish alive, and if you don't have a good oxygen supply in a pond, you're going to start losing fish in the hot summer days. So there's a whole little balance here. I hope I kind of helped you out a little bit and kind of gave you some guidelines without confusing you too much. I know I went off on some crazy tangents here, but it's all related, right, as to how many plants and how many fish you should have in your pond. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that this kind of helped you a little bit, answered some of your questions anyway. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out all my videos. I got a ton of stuff here. I'd really appreciate the support. I'm trying to get my way over to 1,000 subscribers here. And, I've got a ton of stuff in here that I really think is very helpful information for, a lot of you pond hobbyists out there. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.